Have you ever wondered what it would look like to go full-time as an independent musician? See, this is a big question that's on every musician's mind whenever they first start to take their dreams seriously. They know they want to be a musician, but the path to get there and doing that full-time as a career is very foggy and vague, right? But what if it's actually not as bad as most people are making it out to be? It's not that complicated. It's just not that easy, right? Just because something isn't complicated doesn't mean it's not difficult. But in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the step-by-step way that you can start to get on the path to doing music full time. I was able to quit my 9 to 5 years ago, and I'll share with you some of the tactics that I did to go full time in music. But I want to at least give you the strategy so that you can start to go full time or get on that path, okay? So stay locked in. We're going to go deeper on that subject now. So the first thing that we need to understand is if you're trying to go full-time as a musician, that means you're not going full-time right now, which means you got a job. So let's talk about that job for a second. And as a little side point, if you don't have a job, I would start there. That would be my first thing to do. If you don't have a job, go get a job, any job. Whenever I first got married to my wife and we moved in together, I had to go find a job. I couldn't wait for all those systems to immediately start paying all the bills. I had to go get that floor of income, okay? Now, once you've got the job, I'm assuming that's most of you. You've been grinding at, probably a not so amazing job. I know we've all been there. We've all been in warehouses or desk jobs or fast food and service industry where it's, a big grind, right? But how can we start to go full-time? Now, you don't quit tomorrow. That's definitely what you don't do, is just go quit your job tomorrow and go, I'm going full-time. The idea here is you want to wean off of it, okay? So the idea or the word you'll hear is supplemental income. You start to get extra income coming in on the side, and then you start to get enough on the side that you can start going maybe part-time with your job. So I'll give you an example. Whenever I was starting out, I was like, okay, I need to get a job. What's the best job I can get? Well, there was an opening at Guitar Center for a guitar instructor. I was like, oh, that's perfect. Like, I teach guitar in my own spare time. I didn't have very many clients or anything, but I taught it in my spare time. So I was like, yeah, I'll do it, right? So I go sign up and I start getting this floor of income. And I got to a point where I had maybe 33 clients every single week that I was meeting to help them with their music. Now, what happened was, after a while, I started noticing what Guitar Center was charging, what I was getting paid. And, I was getting paid $20 an hour. It wasn't a bad rate at all, but I was looking at like, wow, for every transaction that's happening, that's how much Guitar Center's making. And this is how much I'm making. And I started to think to myself, what if I did the math on like how many clients would I need at that price on my own, in my own private practice, to make as much as I'm making here at Guitar Center? So what was the first thing I did? I started to build up my private practice outside of Guitar Center. And then once I had found enough people that were willing to be my private client, I said, all right, I have enough like floor of income guaranteed that's going to match what I'm making at Guitar Center. And some people may say, well, why not just stay at Guitar Center too and then make this extra income? Here's why. I wanted more time to work on my music. I was working so much on teaching people how to play music that I wasn't really working on my own music. So I needed to create more time in my schedule. I was working probably with commute and everything, 30, 40 hours a week, typical thing. So you need to look at like, okay, I'm working that much with 33 clients and I'm making X, right? So I only needed 10 clients basically. It was like 9 or 10 clients at those different price points. By the way, what were the price points? It was 30 minutes for, it was $97 for weekly 30-minute lessons and $197 for weekly hour-long lessons. And I got those clients filled up within a couple of weeks. Once I started pushing the marketing hard to get those clients, I went and got them up, went and quit Guitar Center, put in my 2 weeks. And then when I was able to do that, I was making basically the same money, but a little bit more and a little bit more guaranteed because I didn't have students quitting, because I picked the best ones that would stay with me and were actually fun to teach. And I built up a floor of income where I only had to work about 7.5 hours a week. And that's a big cut from what I was doing. I'm basically working 1/5 the time, making a little bit more money guaranteed, So, yes, I still had a side hustle with music, but I think that's actually the most common thing. I'm going to demystify this for a lot of people. That's probably most musicians that you know, even some of the big professional ones. Now, depending on what tier of fame that band is in, that will be less frequent or more frequent. For example, if you're looking at bands that are in that sort of road dog tier, where they had some big radio hits back 10, 15, 20 years ago, and they're still out there touring, grinding, doing 3-month tour runs and stuff like that, a lot of them probably have side jobs at home or side hustles that they do to make money when they're not on the road, okay? That's a very, very common thing for the road dogs. A lot of people will have remote work. I remember there was a lot of musicians I toured with who would do, for example, like website design, graphic design, just things that you could do remotely. That kind of shows you that musicians, you think this is something that only happens in the independent realm, but we're always getting multiple streams of income. In my opinion, the ones that you focus on are the multiple streams of income that are within your business, within your control, as opposed to just trying to get like, I'm going to do website design. I'm going to do crypto trading. I'm going to do real estate. I'm going to do that's not the way that you do multiple streams of income. That works for, I think, 0.000000000, and it just never gets to 1 because that doesn't happen. So just don't do that, right? So what multiple streams of income looks like is, for example, okay, I've got royalty income coming in from Spotify. I've got merchandise and sale offers coming in from my email or my website. And then I've also got gig income potentially. And then I've got, guitar teaching income, or maybe you're doing producing or mixing for people. There's all these different ways that you're earning money. And a lot of people like to say like, well, is that really doing music full time? I would say, yeah, 100% it is. Like, you are doing music related activities full time. As you and I both know, when we're doing music related things like writing music, touring, gigging, doing anything related to music, it's not really work. It's like fun, creative play. And so what happens is you start to get in this position where your business becomes actually really fun because you're not thinking of it as a business really. But I think the main thing to understand is that is what it means to go full time, is that I'm doing what I love, music, in any capacity, and that's all I'm earning my income from, is those music-related streams of income. So a lot of people have this idealized version, which is like totally possible, but it's 0.01%. See, I actually got to a 1 there. 0.01% of musicians who, they go immediately from job to music royalties pay all their bills, right? Without having to invest in advertising or some kind of strategy like that. It's very rare that you see that. But the thing that actually is predictable is the slow weaning off of the job, right? I think about it like this. Like, if I just need to figure out what are my expenses, how much does it cost to keep the lights on and you're fed and all that kind of good stuff? What's that floor of income, or I should say that those expenses that you have to pay, so that you can have a little bit more than that with some cushion of guaranteed income and make it music related. So maybe that's being a music producer. Maybe that's helping people with mixing and mastering. Maybe that's helping people set up their light shows. Maybe that's figuring out how you can arbitrage using cover songs to get lots of streams and, earn your royalties. I mean, people don't think about it like being possible. There are a lot of people who can make a good income from Spotify because they're not playing the game of the slow incremental build of like, let me get some diehard fans that are listening to my music. They're playing the game of like, let me play top 40 hits and find people that would just want to hear that cool remixed cover version of it and then just get a bunch of streams that way. Like Mac Glocky is a great example of that. His entire royalty income stream is based on covers. He just makes albums of covers where it's like, Mr. Brightside, but if it was done in the style of System of a Down. It's all based on that kind of, that meme sort of thing, right? But he's just taking covers, and now you think about it like this. Songwriting royalties are split into performance royalties, which is like the songwriting credits and stuff, and then the master, which is like the digital asset of the music. Well, when you do a cover, you can't get you can't collect songwriting royalties because you didn't write it. But you've created a new recording of it. You've created a new digital recording of it, so you get paid the masters. And what's cool about this is to get a mechanical license to use this is relatively cheap. If you use just a service, it could be like $12 or something. It's very easy. And then the master royalties are 6-to-1 payouts, what songwriting royalties are, which means for every, $100, you're going to make 6 times, you're going to make $60. Or, maybe that's not even the best. It's late at night right now. It's past midnight and stuff. So forgive me if my math isn't amazing. But you basically make 6 times more, right? So for every dollar they make, you make $6. That's a better way to put it. See, there you go. The math found its way to the right place, right? So I think we get the whole idea about jobs. But now we need to think about it like this. Okay, so let's summarize. You're going to be like, okay, Dax, I get it. I need to figure out how to slowly wean off my job and replace the income that I'm getting from my job with music-related income, right? So that could be teaching somebody, whether it's vocals, drums, keyboard, guitar, music theory, songwriting, whatever. And then maybe you're producer, mixing, mastering engineer, you're someone who's a tech for a live band. There's all different kinds of things that you can do to earn money to slowly replace your job, right? And then eventually you're able to replace the job with your music-related income. But then the step 2 to this that a lot of people are probably thinking, like, okay, Dax, let's say I get to that position, right? I've got, my side hustle or whatever paying for half of it, and then I've got my music paying for the other half. How do I grow the music to take over, even more so that I'm mostly getting paid for being a musician? So what I would do there is focus on, first and foremost, what is the game that you're going to be playing? A lot of musicians don't know what game they're playing. You have to pick one at first. You can always expand and do different games later. So what do I mean by games? For example, are you doing the direct-to-business model, which would be something like sync licensing? Sync licensing is where you get your music in movies, shows, video games, things like that, right? Well, you're not working with fans. You're not working with the consumer, the customer, right? You're working with a business. You're working with music libraries. You're working with music supervisors and maybe personal relationships that you have with people so that you can figure out, okay, I'm going to get my music here so that I can get paid. And that income stream game is a lot different than other ones. You get a little bit of pennies here, pennies here, pennies here. Oh, this one sync licensing gig paid me a lot of money up front. Cool. But then hopefully those pennies grow into dollars per month, which is not really paid out per month. It's usually paid out per quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And so you're just like constantly building up this slow mountain, slow mountain, slow mountain. Boom, big payday, slow mountain, slow mountain, slow mountain, payday, slow mountain. That's the direct-to-business game, right? So if that's the game you're playing, if your music best fits with that kind of stuff, go for it. Dive into that game head on and don't go into the shiny object syndrome that we have as musicians, like, oh, a kitty, and then like we get distracted. Like, you got to make sure that if you're going to focus on something, you see it through and learn how to do it. And then once it's set up and you got that working, then move on to the next thing. Then it's like, okay, I've got that system working, now I'll move on to the next thing. But until you've got something that's reliable, build that leg of your music business first. Okay. Now, let's talk about a different game. What's a different game that we could play? The direct-to-consumer game, or the direct-to-customer game, which is fundamentally being an original artist, trying to get your music in the hands of the fan directly, and having them pay for different music-related things that you offer, which is like merchandise that you offer. It could be services. You could tie in that side hustle into that so that it's like kind of mixed together. So I had a Talladega Nights month, mailed it together. So you want to, so movie references are popular on this channel if you're new here. So you got to keep up with all the early 2000s movie references. You have to figure out what are the revenue generating systems of the games that I'm playing, right? So if you're doing the direct to consumer thing, you got to be thinking like, okay, well, I can make money with live shows. Like, so if you've got a band and you guys have been practicing in the garage or whatever, the easiest way for you to start making some money is get a little piece of merch, like a wristband and some stickers, cheap, but will pay off like 4 or 5-fold when you sell them all. So just get started with that. Go start making some money, playing some shows, selling some stuff, getting paid, maybe paid $100 to be there. That's the first like revenue generating opportunity for that person in that situation. But what if you're a solo artist and you don't have a band? Well, then you can't go to that revenue generating opportunity. It doesn't fit for your situation. Maybe a better situation for you is email marketing, so that you build your content machine up so that you're really pulling in new people. You're building up this awareness base of people who are like, oh, thank you. I didn't know this existed. Thank you so much for showing me this cool music. And then you get them into your email list where you sell them that wristband or that sticker that I mentioned, right? Or, if I'm just using basic examples here, you could sell things that are digital or, fulfilled digitally so that you don't necessarily have to print anything out. But you get the idea. It's a different game if I'm going to do the live game versus the email marketing one. Different approaches, different revenue generating systems and opportunities. But what you got to do is focus on one. So in my opinion, if you're trying to build up, a good fan base that actually wants to hear your music and will come to shows, I think it's important to do this sort of start online, start posting as much as you can, right? As much as you can do consistently without being burnt out. And then start just testing different hooks to get that audience into your world. And once they're there and they start showing up, you got to start messaging them or getting them into your email list somehow. Once they're in there, we got to start figuring out how to build that rapport and affinity between fan and artist. And then once that's built, then we make an offer. Okay, but if you make the offer too soon, it kills rapport and it just comes off bad, right? But there's ways to do it where if you don't try to sell them something as soon as they join the email list, just that in itself is giving value, because most people do that. Most people, it's like, hey, the first email, I know a lot of people are going to open this, so here's a $5 coupon, right? And if you've got a list of 100,000 people, that makes sense. You can make some good money. But most of us don't have that. Most of us have lists of, 100, 1,000. Some of y'all are just starting, so your list is at 0, and so you're trying to get that first 10 to 100 people in. So in that case, just focus on building that relationship, that bond connection with your fan base, right? And so if you're interested in learning that system, that's what we teach our clients to do one-on-one all the time. So there's a link in the description if you want to book a call to figure out how to set up those kind of systems. But the whole idea here is that you need to figure out what game am I playing and what's my plan of attack. Okay, and if I know those two things, I know how I can grow the music side of it. So you can think about it like this. At one point, it's like 50% job, 50% music, right? And you're like, okay, I hate this job. How can I get out of the job thing? So you start working on this side hustle maybe. And so it turns into, you have to take a step back from the music. And it's like 33% music, 33% job, 33% side hustle. You're working a lot during this period. This is like the phase that I had whenever I was building the private practice while also working my 9-to-5, right? And then I still had gig obligations and tours. So I was just like, doing a lot of work. But luckily it was only a couple weeks. Then I was able to put in my 2 weeks, fulfill that out. And then so that last 2 weeks was a little bit stressful, but I knew the end was coming. Had my last day, boom. Now I'm to a point where it's 50% side hustle, 50% music. Then what we just got done talking about is like, okay, now once we're in that position, we all know that realistically we'd like to grow the music to be like 80-20 our income, right? So how do we do that? Again, figure out what game you're playing. Are you doing the sync licensing game? Are you doing the, I'm going to make music for the fans and go direct to consumer and sell merchandise and do that kind of game? You got to figure out what your revenue generating opportunities are for the game that you're playing, and then just go in, right? So if you want to go all in on like the email marketing and getting your music to your fans directly, get them in through the content, sell via email, then click the link that's in the description to set up a one-on-one call with me to see if we could help you out in your music business. We also have a link to join a free group, so that if you want to get access to that, that's also available in the description. And the last little thing I'll bug you with is hit the subscribe button and then a notification bell if you enjoyed this video. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video inside of Musicians Ignite. Take care.